Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Broken? Sprained? Huh? Fractured. Oh, that was close. Your knee? Because I got here a little late, and you've already had some nice kirtan already, I think I'll just begin. A little introduction. The topic is going to be about what's on?
Krishna is back. So
I beg your pardon?
Krishna is in the back, so I'm trying to move this side.
The cameraman. What's up? So I can put this here? It's just, okay. Tell me when you're ready. You ready? Oh, okay. During the month of Kartik 2019, a group of us went together to follow the path of Lord Ramachandra through Aranyakanda and Kishkindakanda. And in the course of doing that, I came to understand more keenly than I had understood before, because before that we went Chitrakoot, Ayodhya and Chitrakoot, then Balakanda and Ayodhya-kanda, Aranyakanda, Kishkindakanda, and I came to know that the devotees in China don't have access to Ramayana in Chinese. And then I came to know that there's a celebrated, required reading, practically, book in China. There are 4 main books that everyone must read or does read that's educated in China. And one of them is the Journey West. And it's the life story about a Buddhist monk during the Tang Dynasty, the 7th century, that made a journey all the way to cross very dangerous land. Very few people survive, to go all the way to Bihar, where the birthplace of Buddha was, to hear from a Buddhist teacher the actual teachings of Buddha, because there was confusion. And he learned Sanskrit, and he stayed there for years. And he went back and taught Buddhism according to the genuine, authentic way, and translated some number of Buddhist texts from Sanskrit into Chinese through his school. It was celebrated. Leacock or something. A celebrated person during his time, and he was a biographer. He was a historian, and he kept very careful records of everything that was unusual for his time. In fact, it's one of the few historical records of that tract of the world during that period of time, because very good historian. And then nearly a century later, another Chinese author wrote his story. Only he changed things a little bit, and one of the major characters in the story is Hanuman. In other words, he just took a blend of Ramayana and this celebrated personality and rewrote it, blending the two together. And it's very interesting, like Ramayana is very interesting, especially involving a monkey king. He wasn't named Hanuman, but it's very clear that the interpolation between the two. So that this idea came, and just a little background, that their national holiday, some of you work with Chinese people and you know they're workaholic people, and but there's a 7-day national holiday for the Independence Day. Like we have 4th of July, America's Independence Day, they have 7 days. And people don't work. Yay! So it's a really good time to have a seminar, 7-day seminar. So I've been doing that for some number of years. So this year, coming up in about 2 weeks, is a seminar on personalities from Ramayana. And meanwhile, in the background, there's an effort to make a translation from one of the versions of Ramayana that's easy to read and translated into Chinese, and see if the government will allow it to be published. With the tensions between China and India, the publisher is not so hopeful. Real doubtful. Because that's how things are decided in China. Who's on the good side and who's on the bad side. In any case, so then there'll be a short presentation each of the seminar, morning, evening, for 7 days, 14 sessions. And somebody that resembles the personality from Ramayana within Chinese history or literature, or a celebrated person that most people know. Strategically, it's called Krishna consciousness with Chinese characteristics. They have an acronym, KCCC. Because it'll help the Chinese people relate naturally. And it'll help the people that are checking us out, because we know there are people checking us out. We're trying to accommodate Chinese culture, Chinese characteristics. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why we're inviting you to participate in discussing one of the personalities from Ramayana, and this evening's personality is Vibhishan. Because yesterday evening's personality was Ravana. So this evening is Vibhishana, quite a contrast. And a little bit of reading and mostly just summarizing. So yesterday we heard about how it came to be that Ravana was born of Vishravas. So let's do a little background. Palasya Muni, Brahma, and from Brahma's body directly, from different parts of his body, there were different sages. Palasya was one of them, born from the mind of Brahma. And Palasya was engaged in austerities on the side, the slopes of Mount Meru. And I'm going to do a little bit like I did yesterday. Where is Mount Meru in the picture of Vedic cosmology? Would you like a little quickie lesson? Not a, because it can get really detailed. But the Vedic cosmology is not the same picture as Western astronomy or Western cosmology. Vedic cosmology is the form of the universe is the universal form, and there's different features and depictions and aspects of the universal form. But one of the primary ones is found in Canto 5, Srimad Bhagavatam, starting with chapter 16 to the end. It covers about 9 chapters. It's very detailed, very perplexing. And one of the basic features of this universal form is there's 14 planetary systems, 7 lower, 7 upper, and we're in the lowest of the upper, Bhuvar and Svargaloka, and above that, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Brahmaloka. So in our planetary system, Bhu Loka or Bhu Mandala, there's a plane of Bhu Mandala, kind of like flat topography. You know, the flat earth theory, you've heard that one. The picture given in the Bhagavatam, and not only the Bhagavatam, in Vishnu Purana and other sources, this is the Temple of Vedic Planetarium is depicting what I'm describing. It will be depicting it. So, Bhumandala is a series. The center part of Bhumandala is a series of islands that are circular, surrounded by oceans that are circular, surrounded by another island that's circular, surrounded by an ocean that's circular, and a set of 7 of those. And the middle island is where we are, Jambudweep. Jambudweep has 9 varshas. One of them is Bharat Varsha. Varsha means tracts of land. And it's the southern portion of Jambudweep. And then there's a mountain range. Guess what the name of that mountain range is? You guessed it, Himalayas. And on the other side of that mountain range, there's another Varsha. On the other Varsha, the next Varsha is Hari Varsha. And that's where Hanuman resides still today till the end of the universe, doing what Hanuman does, glorifies Ram with his associates. That's found in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. And what he does in his prayers to Ram, and it's chapter 19. If you want to read it, it's very nice. So, right in the middle of this central island, Jambudweep, is a really tall mountain. It's 100,000 yojanas. And 1 yojana is 8 miles. So you ever seen a mountain that's that tall? We haven't seen such a mountain. But that's the mountain that's in the midst of Jambudweep. And it's an upside-down mountain. It's an inverted cone. It's flat at the top and then narrows down, and it's solid gold. And there's a 10,000 yojanas is beneath Bhumandala. Kind of the cone sticks into the middle of Jambudweep. And up at the top, I'm mentioning all this because this is where Pulasya was doing his austerities. And later, one of the descendants of Pulasya becomes Kuvera, who is the half-brother or step-brother of Ravana. So Pulasya was doing austerities there, and ladies were coming, to girls, to enjoy the nice celestial region of Mount Meru, and it was disturbing Palashya's meditation. And so he spoke to them and said, I'm making a curse that anybody that comes here, any ladies that come here again in the future, and I see them, they'll immediately become pregnant. So they stayed away. But there was one girl that didn't hear that pronouncement. She came and she was having a nice time in disturbed Palashya, and she suddenly felt that she was pregnant. She went to tell Daddy. And Daddy, I promise you I didn't do anything, but I believe I'm pregnant. And what's the cause? Why am I experiencing this? So he did some meditation for some time and he understood, and he then brought his daughter to Palashya to accept her as his wife and to receive the child that was to be born. And the child that was born was Vṛndāvana. And so later, as it happened, Vṛndāvana became married to the daughter of Bharadraj Muni, if I remember correctly. And Vṛndāvana later became Kubera, was his son. And that's where we're coming into the story now with Vibhishan. So Vibhishan was the youngest brother of a different mother than Vṛndāvana or Kuvera, because he became... Vṛndāvana underwent austerities for a long, long, long time. He was like his father, very fixed. And the simultaneous with the very elevated Palashya and Vṛndāvana, there's the divine and demoniac. We know that from Bhagavad Gita, right? From the very beginning of creation, there are these two natures. Even before there was the world was built, when Brahma was manifesting the Vedas, he was yawning, and Madhu and Kaitava tried to steal the Vedas. So Brahma had to go get help from Vishnu. So Brahma killed Kaitava and Madhu. So that's right at the very beginning, divine and demoniac. And so fast forward, there's a demoniac nature also. The Daitya group, or the Danavas, there were three brothers, and they also underwent great austerities, got some benedictions from Brahma, and they started to misuse them and terrorize people and attack the demigods and kill the rishis, and they needed to be checked. So the demigods got into a battle with the demons, and they lost because Vishnu took their side. So they lost their kingdom. Their kingdom had been built for them by Vishvakarma, celestial architect, but he was enlisted and he built a place for the Daityas. When they lost their kingdom, they all went down to the lower planetary regions where Daityas commonly reside, but one remained, and his name was Sumali. He was a chieftain, and Sumali had a wife, and with his wife he had a number of children. One of them was a daughter. He had two daughters, but one is involved in this situation. So this daughter was Kashi. Kashi had no husband. So Sumali said to Kaikashi, we would like to have in our Daitya dynasty very qualified son. So the way to do this is you go to Vishravas and petition him to accept you. And if he accepts you as his wife and produces children, then we'll have good offspring. The Daitya genes and the very exalted Brahmana qualities within our son, within your son. So she did. She followed the instruction of her father. She went to Vishravas's ashram, and he was in the midst of meditation, so she was patiently waiting. And she was very shy. She had good, very beautiful features and good characteristics. She was shy, just looking at the ground, and Vishravas recognized there she was. And who are you, and why have you come here? So she said, I'm too embarrassed to say, but you're a rishi, you probably can understand why I've come. So after some meditation, he understood and said, I accept you as my wife. Yes, you will have children. But because you've come at an inauspicious time, your children will be very destructive for the well-being of the whole universe. And she said, that I don't want children like that. Please do something. And he said, it's too late. You've come at an inauspicious time. But the fourth of your children will be of a different quality than the first three. They'll be like myself and our line, the Palastya line. So the first son was Dasagriva. That's who we spoke about yesterday. The name Ravana came later. That was a name given by Lord Shiva because he would make people cry. So he gave him that name. But he was named Dasagriva because he had 10 necks. And on top of the 10 necks was 10 heads and 20 arms. And yet, there's a description of what he looked like when he was born. Pretty scary, just in appearance. And Kumbhakarna was next. Shuparandaka is next. And then Vibhishan. So it was known ahead of time that Vibhishan would be of ideal character, righteous character. And he never deviated from righteousness. He lived with his senses controlled, practiced Vedic study, and restriction of his diet. And over the course of time, the three brothers went to the forest to undergo meditations. It's during that austerities. It's during that period of time that Ravan received his boons from Brahma. But when it became Vibhishan's turn, that his austerity, he stood on 1 foot for 5,000 years. He beat Dhruva. 5,000 years. And then after that, for another 5,000 years, he gazed steadily at the sun, standing with his arms raised above his head, and his mind fixed in Vedic recitation. After 10,000 years, Brahma came, he offered his benedictions. Vibhishan proclaimed that just by seeing him, All his purposes had been fulfilled. However, if Brahma desired to offer any benediction, here's what he requested. May every thought that I may have in each and every stage of life in this world be supremely righteous. And may I always uphold righteous conduct appropriate to every stage. So be it. Ravana and Kumbhakarna said, what are you doing? You're going to ruin everything. You're going to ruin our dynasty. You're going to ruin yourself. You don't fit in with the rest of us. Vibhishan was undeterred. In course of time, he accepted a wife. His wife was the daughter of Shailusha. We're going to hear more about his wife coming up. Shailusha was a king in the Gandharva realm. And her name was Sarama. Sarama. Remember her name because we're going to hear more about her later. And Sarama was born by the lake Manasa. And one time during monsoon season, the lake Manasa started to flood. So her mother offered a prayer to Lake Manasa. Oh, lake, do not flood, do not flood. Sara means flood. Ma, do not flood. That's how she got her name. Later, during Ravana's rule in Lanka, there were 4 like him in quality ministers in the government of Ravana. Their names, Anala, Anila, Hara, and Sampati. Sampati was the son of Vibhishan's mother's brother. So Kaikashi was his mother, and her brother was Malin. So he was a son of Malin and had qualities like Vibhishan. So the description of Vibhishan's righteous behavior begins, we don't hear about him really too much until Hanuman arrives. Now there's a version of Ramayana that says after Hanuman arrived and dealt with Lankini and was searching for Sita, one of the versions of Ramayana that's not so well known, but it says that Hanuman visited the home of Vibhishan, and he did the same way. He appeared in a Brahmana form, according to this particular Ramayana. But in any case, Vibhishan was living in Lanka. So after he found Sita in the Ashok Grove and had his discussion with her, and gave her the ring that had been given by Ram, and so forth, and she gave a jewel so Ram would know that she has been found. And many other things happened. There was a plan, a willingness for Hanuman to take her back. Because he overheard Ravana's speech, he overheard the Rakshasi's speech. He was ready to kill them all, and Sita spared them. So after assuring, mission accomplished, Hanuman wanted to do several things. He did in addition to, on top of his other benedictions or other services that he had done, he wanted to give a warning to the Ravana's soldiers that they're going to be destroyed. So he did what he did. He messed up the Ashok Grove and took a iron rod and was smashing everything, and 10 generals came and he killed the 10 generals, and Indrajit came and wrapped him up in the coil of some rope, and he was taken before Ravana. He knew how to escape, but he didn't do it right away because he wanted to see Ravana and confront him. So in the course of his speaking to Ravana, he spoke so directly, Ravana was insulted. And you don't insult Ravana, so Ravana said, kill him. And Vibhishan then spoke up. Vibhishan said, you don't kill a messenger. It's against the codes of the Vedas, which Ravana, during his growing up, he was trained by his father. He knew the Vedas, he just didn't become purified by them. He abused them. He used them to his own purposes. So Vibhishan said, you should not, you must not kill him. You can give him some punishment. That's what you do with a messenger. And besides, he made some destruction in the city. So you can punish him, but you can't kill him. So it was decided to ignite his tail, because monkeys are fond of their tail. And that's all that Hanuman needed, because he then used the fire to start burning Lanka and so forth. One of the places he didn't burn was Vibhishan's home. It's specified in the Ramayana. He knew which one was Vibhishan's home because he was a good, intelligence gatherer. He was concerned about Sita, and maybe she was in difficulty because of the fire, but then he was reassured that Sita is safe. So now we get into Vibhishan is in action here, seeing the destruction of the city from fire, being concerned at the power that Hanuman exhibited, and Hanuman said, there's hordes of monkeys that are as powerful as I am. I'm just one, there's so many, and you're in big trouble, give Sita back. So he gathered an assembly of the generals and ministers and his advisors. And they were all like, Ravana, you're just unprepared. You didn't have any idea that this monkey was going to be so. But you look at who you've defeated. You've had this victory, that victory. No one can stand. No worries. Monkeys or humans, no worries. But then Vibhishan spoke. He's his brother and occupying an important position in the royal assembly. And here's some of his advice. There's like 7 points. The first one is that war is the last resort in the principles of administration, governance. There's many other approaches that should be done before that one is taken up. Persuasion, gifts, creating dissension. It's politics. Things that you do before you go to war. Next point is when the opposing party has strength from being able to control their mind and senses, and follow the path of virtue, that's not the right person to pick a fight with. Then the third point was, please consider the strength of Hanuman. He crossed the ocean just by jumping. And look what he did in the garden. And his own physical strength. So don't underestimate Hanuman and the other soldiers that will be with him. Then another was a moral argument. Ram didn't cause any harm to you, and Kara was defeated in self-defense. He didn't pick a fight with Kara. Kara picked a fight with him. So if you want to fight with him, do this in a different way. Declare war, if he gets to that. But, doing that on the basis of abducting Sita, and that's the cause of the war, that's the wrong principle to have a war over, because it's quite sinful. So there's a very simple solution. I'm not going to be like the flattering ministers over there. Return Sita. And that caused the whole assembly to be adjourned for the day. He wanted to think over what he had just heard. That's advice number one. There's a whole series on Ravana. It's a growing list. It's like 20 different personalities appealed to him to return Sita. So Vibhishan is one. His mother appealed to him. He said no. His mother's father appealed to him. He said no. Kumbhakarna said, and he said no. So he had lots of opportunity to take the right path and be corrected, but he was very stubborn. So the next morning, Vibhishan went to his brother's palace, and being diplomatic, he spoke nicely, flatteringly and pleasingly and appreciative and so forth. But he then expressed that he's seeing evil omens all over Lanka, not just what happened the other day with the burning of Lanka. But ever since Sita has been brought here, he's detecting and lists the evil omens. Ravana refuses to acknowledge this, and I have sufficient strength, I can overcome any obstacle. So it didn't go anywhere. So the assembly was convened the next day, and everyone did the same thing again. They, Ravana, go for it. Kumbhakarna said, why are you asking us now? What should you do? You've already did it. And what you did was wrong. And now you're asking us, what should you do? You got it backwards, brother. And really what you should do is give Sita back. But I know you're not going to do that. And so you can count on me. I'm your brother. When it came Vibhishan's turn, he spoke saying, ministers that just flatter, they're not doing what ministers are supposed to do. Ministers are supposed to guide the executive head. And I'm going to speak what I believe is what a well-wishing, good brother of yours and minister should be doing. And he goes through, here's some of his points. This is Vibhishan, his standing by righteousness, whatever the circumstance. Ram is the embodiment of Dharma. Ram is the foremost of warriors. All the warriors who are so boastful saying this and that, not one of them can cross the ocean like Hanuman did. And Sita is like a mighty serpent. And one who steps on Sita is going to die. So he encouraged, please reconsider, all friends of Ravana, to advise him to do the right thing. Give Sita back. Make friendship with Ram. And our ruling here in Lanka will continue. And otherwise, we'll all be destroyed. It's not the right thing to say in front of Ravana. And Ravana and Indrajit became so enraged, he drew his sword and said, if you weren't my brother, I'd kill you right now. So it reminds me of Vidura, when he left, there's no service for me here. So he left. He had mystic power, so he just rose in the air, right in the assembly, and his 4 ministers went with him, and they departed to go join Ram, take shelter of Ram. So this is a very significant event. And there's a really wonderful place where it took place when we visited South India. We visited this place where Vibhishan surrendered. And it's a place for others also. It's a celebrated place of surrender. So he had enough presence to know, to not just, because he was moving moving by mystic power. He didn't come in for a landing. He was just hovering in the air, and he was greeted by Sugriva and many other Vanaras. And so rather than going straight to Ram, he requested very tactfully and appropriately by culture for Sugriva to carry his message to Ram, that I'd like to take shelter of you. Please inform him and let me know what he says. So it's an interesting section. Each of the different personalities, Ram consulted his ministers, Sugriva being one, and Jabhavan, and this one, that one, Angada, and so forth. And they all had something different to say. But it was, don't just accept him. Sugriva was the most like, we can't trust him. He just left his brother in a time of need. So he's joining us for convenience, but at any moment he could turn against us too. We should test him for some time, and so forth and so on. Hanuman is the only one that spoke favorably. I'd like to read what Hanuman said. We do not have time to test Vibhishan. In my opinion, he has come here in all sincerity, hoping to take shelter of Lord Ram. He has understood that Ravana is wicked, and that Ram is the supreme emblem of purity and righteousness. His peaceful demeanor and considerate speech indicate the honesty of his purpose, for a deceitful person cannot remain so composed. It is not possible for anyone to fully conceal his inner intentions. Thus, the facial expressions always give some clue into one's thoughts. I think Vibhishan should be accepted as our ally without reservation. And everyone turns to Ram, but he said, but ultimately Ram has to decide. And then this celebrated statement, one who even once surrenders unto me. You know that statement? You know what the statement in Sanskrit is? I don't. I never forsake one who has come to me as a friend. Even though he has many faults, I shall accept him, and the good will not condemn my actions. And Sugriva was saying, wait a minute. And then Ram made this statement, one who has taken shelter of me will never be defeated. I will give him protection. So then, very tactfully, Ram requested Sugriva to invite Vibhishan to come and take shelter of him, because Sugriva was the most vocal about not doing it. Sugriva appreciated that there are many detailed exchanges in this regard, but it's a significant part in Ramayana. According to the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, the whole of Ramayana is a treatise on surrender. So this is a very dramatic surrender event. It's a treatise on Sharanagati. They say explicitly that same language that Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses in detail. So it's a climax. Vibhishan's surrender and Ram's acceptance and the way that it happened. And so one of the primary objectors Sugriva is inviting Vibhishan to come. And when Vibhishan comes, he falls at his feet and expresses words of appreciation for having been accepted by Ram, and he pledges his loyalty to him. He's certain that Ram will be victorious because righteousness always prevails over the wickedness of persons like Ravan, and he tried his best to persuade him again and again, and Ravana would not heed, so he couldn't stay with such a vile person, and he wants to be in the service of the righteous Ram. So Ram then wants to hear, this is another matter of warfare, you want to find out about the other army or the other party's strength. It comes up again and again in Ramayana. So Vibhishan is asked about the strength of the forces of Ravana. He makes vows that he will destroy Ravana, and he won't desist until Ravana is destroyed. And he pledges to coronate Vibhishan right there before they even reach. There's 2 coronations, it's after Ravana is finished, but he coronates the Vibhishan. And there's a description of Vibhishan's mood during that ceremony. They gather water from the sea, and they have a yajna and so forth. His mood was not like, yay, I'm going to become the king. His mood was simply service to Ram. He would accept this position in service to Ram. He wasn't interested in the material opulence like his brother. Lanka was a very opulent city, but he wasn't interested in that, because Ram desired that for him, he accepted. So then there was a discussion. Ram requested Vibhishan, do you have a suggestion how we can cross the ocean? Hanuman could jump there, but I don't know if everybody else can. So Vibhishan made the following suggestion. One of your forefathers, King Sagara, made the arrangement for the ocean to be there. It's found in Canto 9, Chapter 5. One of the descendants prior in the Ikshvaku line, prior to Ram's appearance, Dasarath and so forth, predecessor, King Sagara. So the horse from the horse sacrifice was stolen by Indra, and he sent his sons to go search for the horse. He couldn't find it somehow, so they dug. They made the place where Varuna was the lord of, and so ask him and he'll most likely give you some assistance. That was Vibhishan's advice. It's Canto 9, Chapter 8, Sagara, King Sagara. We know the story that the ocean personified or didn't respond right away, so Ram did what he did, and he came to make his suggestion how they could cross. While they're making this preparation, Ravana sent 2 spies, and Vibhishan detected them. And Vibhishan brought them before Ram for punishment, and Ram said, let them go. And they were a little astonished, and the 2 spies thought they were finished. If it had been Ravana, they would have been finished. So they expressed their gratitude. Shuka and Sharana were their names. They gave their blessings to Ravana, to Ram. May you be victorious. Your virtue is outstanding. May you be victorious. And they went back and they reported to Ravan what had happened. Ravana decided to send some additional spies. It didn't work. But he told them, you assume forms like monkeys. So their names were Shardula and some others. Even they were disguised as monkeys. Vibhishan detected them, turned them over to Ram, and Ram released them again. Just showing his character. Vibhishan being loyal to Ram, and Ram being gracious and a qualified ruler. Meanwhile, back in Lanka, Ravana did the Ravana again and he spoke in the way that he speaks to Sita. Sita once again took the blade of grass and placed it between her and Ravana. It happened one other time when she was taken in Panchavati. So he then threatened her, you submit, you have 2 months, and if you don't submit, you'll be my breakfast. And he left and told the Rakshasis to harass her. So Sita was defiant, but also very distressed. One can only imagine. And Trijata came to her in private and shared with her that she had a dream. And she described the dream. It had 3 parts. One of the parts was Ravan, and another was Ram, and another was Vibhishan. And specifically with Vibhishan in her dream, Vibhishan is described by her. Vibhishan was mounted upon a 4-tusked elephant, covered by a white canopy, and was heralded by conch shells and kettle drums. So she interpreted the dream to mean Ram will soon come and redeem you. So please feel safe. Soon he will come. This is after Hanuman's visit. And when the Vanaras reached Lanka, there was a lot of noise outside, and Ravana decided to play a trick on Sita. He had a sorcerer bring a head that looked like Ram's head and presented it to Sita, saying he's been killed. And Vibhishan's wife, Sarama, came privately to speak with Sita and said, I happened to overhear everything that Ravana had said, and it's all a lie. I can assure you that Ram is not dead. The head you saw was created by a Rakshasa conjurer's trick. In truth, Ram has arrived at Lanka with Lakshmana and the army of monkeys. They are now preparing to attack Ravana. That is why Ravana just left here in such an agitated state. He knows that he is unable to defeat Ram and the monkey heroes under his protection. Even from here I can hear the Rakshasas making preparations. Indeed, there will soon be a great war between the 2 armies. Do not worry, Sita, for Ram will defeat Ravana without doubt. Sarama had already had a relationship with Sita because Ravana sent her. He was afraid that she might take her life. So she was an emissary to help keep her alive. So there was that trusting relationship already. After reassuring Sita, Sarama asked if there was any service she could render for the princess. She offered to carry a message to Ram. If you wish, I can go invisibly through the skies and reassure Ram of your safety. But Sita just wanted to know what's Ravana's plans. He wanted to know if Ravana had the intention of releasing her, or even maybe killing her before Ram's arrival. If so, then that message should be carried to Ram. Very clever. So, unobserved, because she knew how to make herself invisible, she went to Ravana's chambers and listened to everything that was being discussed. Some hours later, she returned and informed Sita, Ravana has been exhorted by his own mother to return you to Ram. Along with one of his elderly and affectionate counselors, she tried at length to make him see sense. Otherwise, ministers have also put forward a case for your return. They warned Ravana that battle with Ram and the monkeys will have a disastrous result for the Rakshasas. But Ravana will no more let you go than a miser would leave his hold on treasure. He is not prepared to release you until he has laid down his life in combat. So Sita got the answers that she was looking for, and she felt relieved to know that Ram had arrived and Ram was going to finish Ravan. She was sure, she knew his power, and she was sitting beneath the Sim Shapa tree, waiting. So meanwhile, the battle begins, and Vibhishan plays a role in the battle. So I normally don't like to read the battle scene because it's really long, and I'm not a little boy anymore. Little boys like battle scenes a lot, I've learned. But so he had an important role to play in giving advice, and when it looked like Ram and Lakshman were in difficulty, he rallied the troops and regained their confidence and courage, and so forth. Hanuman with his army approached Ram and informed him that Indrajit has killed Sita. Ram faints away, hearing that news. The monkeys sprinkle water on Ram, so he regains consciousness. Vibhishan comes to Lakshmana to behold Ram having fallen into a swoon and lying in the lap of Lakshmana. Lakshmana informs Vibhishan on hearing the words of Hanuman saying that Sita was killed by Indrajit. Ram fell into a swoon. Vibhishan informs Ram of the trickery conjured by Indrajit in killing an illusory form of Sita, and he assures him of Sita being alive and urges him to send Lakshmana with an army to the sanctuary of Nikumbila to kill Indrajit. Vibhishan takes Lakshmana to the place where Indrajit is performing a sacrificial rite. He advises Lakshmana to destroy Indrajit even before he finishes the sacrificial rite at a banyan tree. Indrajit sees Vibhishan there and starts talking harsh words to him, saying that he has betrayed him by bringing Lakshmana to that place. Vibhishan replies that because Ravana's vices, he has left him and joined Ram's side. He further adds that Indrajit and his army will not survive under the rage of Lakshmana's arrows. So there's other events where he has a vital role to play in the battle itself. Finally, when Ravan is killed, he laments. He has a human side. He knows that Ravana is wicked, but he had affection for him, brotherly affection. Ram comforted him, saying that a warrior killed in battle need not be mourned. Vibhishan describes the personality of Ravana and his qualities to Ram, and seeks permission of Ram to perform funeral rites. Ram directs Vibhishan to perform these rituals for his deceased brother. And then there's, right there in Lanka, coronation number 2. Vibhishan assumes the throne. Ram then sent through Hanuman a message to Sita, and then he sends Vibhishan to bring Sita before him. Vibhishan brings Sita to Ram's presence. They see one another. There's, of course, other events, and then they plan to return back to Ayodhya. So Vibhishan is involved in that scene also. It's the taking shelter, rendering service, and now comes separation. Ram commands Vibhishan to honor the monkeys with gold and precious stones. When Vibhishan completed honoring them with these gifts, Ram, along with Lakshman and Sita, ascended the aerial car, Pushpaka Vimana. When the monkeys and Vibhishan request Ram to permit them to accompany him in the aerial car up to Ayodhya to witness his coronation ceremony, Ram gladly permits. So all the Vanaras, it's a big Pushpaka, because it has the capacity to expand too. So they all got aboard. 9,000 elephants greeted in a procession with Sugriva and other monkeys mounted on those elephants. Some attendants and musicians with their musical instruments walk in front of Ram's procession. The citizens of Ayodhya host flags on every house. Ram returns to his paternal palace in Ayodhya. Sugriva orders 4 of his monkeys to bring water from the 4 oceans in jars to give to them. Some monkeys brought water from 500 rivers and also from the 4 oceans for the purpose of the ceremony, Vashishta, etc., etc. And Vibhishan was there. And the conclusion is they're all sent back to their respective places upon the finishing of the coronation ceremony. So, emblem of righteousness sounds like Ram, but Vibhishan was a perfect fit to be with Ram in Ram's service. Like attracts like. So the demons, they like to get together, and the righteous persons, they like to get together. And while it may appear it's one of those things that light is stronger than darkness. So it may look for some time, so good always wins over evil. Now they have some modern stories where evil wins over good, but it's not true. Because it's just the way of the world. It's the way of the world. Light is stronger than darkness, and Ram being that emblem of virtue, and Vibhishan amongst the 4 family members, he's the only one that had that sense. The others were, very, very different in nature, but very selfish and not abiding by any higher principles of life, or doing so when it was convenient, and otherwise inconvenient, it gets to push to the side. So I'm really interested to hear how the Chinese devotees are going to respond to all of this, because there must be somebody in the Chinese culture that was a ruler that was a symbol of righteousness. Let's see what they come up with. Must be. Not just sages and Confucius and people, Lao Tzu and people like that, but some kings that were actually virtuous kings. Let's see. So if there's any comments or questions, we'll spend some time with that.
Thank you. I understand that Vibhishan was following the righteousness, and then he surrenders to Lord Ramachandra as a king, or did he surrender as that, did he know that Lord Ramachandra is the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
That's a nice question. It seems that he did. He certainly seems that he did, because, the antithesis of Ravana was, he knew his power, but he was also certain that he would be defeated. So who's more powerful than Ravana? But the personality of Godhead. So the degree of his realization, it's not made explicit as far as I know. I can go back and look and see, does he specifically say words that indicate you're the Supreme Person? So I can't. If what his words say, I don't know. I don't have that information in front of me. But in principle, yes.
Because I was thinking about when Vibhishan approached Sugriva and others, they were not willing to
accept him.
But since we explained earlier that Hanuman as an acharya,
yes,
so he agreed and he accepted him, and so he took him to Ram. So I was thinking in that way, maybe acharya is important for him to surrender to Krishna.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
So maybe in that way I was thinking, but he really, did he go as a dharma, personification of dharma is Ram, so that's why he surrendered, or he surrendered as a God?
Well, whether he accepted him as the personality of the Supreme Lord or not, supposing it was just he's a virtuous king, that's a place that you take shelter of. A fit place to take shelter, whether he's the Supreme or not. Okay?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful lecture. Vibhishan was in the midst of all the demons in the country of demons, and still he was such a wonderful devotee, all devoted to Lord Ramachandra. How do we surrender to Krishna completely without affected by the external influences?
Well, it's two things. In principle, it's our internal or submission, effort to be in that relationship connected, and the other is mercy. I mean, what the others asked for Kumbhakarna and Ravana from Brahma was on the material side, but he just wanted this elevated position. So he had that blessing. So we need blessings. We need mercy to come into our lives along with our own internal cultivation and commitment. The world in which we live is not an inviting place for virtuous people. It's using Prabhupada's words, I like, surcharged with opposition. It's not easy. It's not what Vibhishan had to undergo we'll never have to undergo. But the principle of opposition all around us is not new. So it's our own, the alignment of our own deepest held values or convictions of truths of life, aligning with the values that we hold and how we conduct our lives in the world around us. Those three, and keeping them aligned, that's yoga, or linking with the Supreme, so that then we have that descending mercy coming, and you can feel it. Someone was sharing this with me just today. 10 years ago I was like this, 5 years ago I was like that, and now it's in a whole other space, and it's just the connection with Krishna, the bhakti process, it's just changing my life. The world around is still, turbulent, but how I'm experiencing it has changed, and how I'm behaving in the midst of that turbulence has changed. So the connection is tangible, for those who are sincere. And good association helps a lot too.
One more question related to that. So,
Yeah.
With the internal turbulences, like our thoughts or negative emotions, how do we stay steady in bhakti?
It's a very important topic, and it's a trendy topic too. I gave a seminar, an 8-hour seminar, 4 parts on that topic. And so there are things that we can do to manage those negative emotions, and there's something we can do in a spiritual principle to completely overcome them. So the completely overcome them part is to understand where fear comes from. Negative emotions and fear. It comes from absorption in duality, or absorption in duality, the material conception of life, and seeking happiness through the medium of material conception of life. We're guaranteeing we're going to have duality. So there's going to be some good emotions, and there's going to be some bad emotions. Happy, sad, light and dark, up and down, wet and dry, pleasure, pain. So it's just, it won't end. We can manage and try your best to manage, but it's an endless mama maya duratya. It's an endless effort, lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and it can be fatiguing. So to go beyond it requires the spiritual conception, and spiritual conception has a whole package that goes with it. Knowledge and living by right principles that brings you closer to knowledge and to light and transcendence. And then there's things to do to manage until you get there. So, did we conduct that seminar right here in Naperville? Art of Meditation, Overcoming Negative Emotions. So it's all, you can hear the recordings, 4 parts. He can make them available. Okay.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Anything? On topic, off topic, under the sun, under the moon, whatever you like.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
I just want to say thank you so much for wonderful lecture and coming to our home. We just planning for this opportunity for almost 3 years.
Really?
Yes, and one way or other, it was continuously postponing. And this is,
Here we are.
yeah, this is, thank you so much.
I'm sorry I had to knock over something that was on your...
No problem.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful lecture. I had a question about 4 personalities. One is Vidura and Vibhishna. They're very similar.
Yes.
They have been serving the side which is not righteous.
Yes.
But at a particular point, they decide
no more service for me.
Yeah. Whereas when you look at Akrūra and you look at Bhishma, they are also on the unrighteous side, though they are themselves righteous. Why is it, they don't switch at any point of time?
They don't what?
They don't switch back to the righteous side. And how do we take it? Is it okay to serve the unrighteous, you yourself being righteous?
Well, in the case of exalted souls that are, and we're not in that category, exalted souls like Akrūra, he was a pure devotee. And when pure devotees do something that's puzzling like that, we need to understand they're being guided by Super Soul to do something that's to assist the Lord in His purposes. And we're just covering that section in the morning. He's experiencing prema on a mission on behalf of Ravana. Ravana is thinking, Kamsa. Kamsa is thinking one way. Bring him here so I can kill him. And Akrūra is thinking, please go kill Kamsa. And, to give relief to your devotees. And, Narada, same thing. So Narada had that similar function. Anyway, so they were doing what they were doing as part of the Lord's plan for His pastimes, and in their case in particular. So that, how do we understand? They're doing something on behalf of the Supreme Lord that looks a little different than, we would do. We wouldn't want to stay in the service of Kamsa. We would do what the other Yadu dynasty members did. They just got out of town and went as far away as they could from that wicked person, because who knows what he'll do in the next moment. Very dangerous, very powerful, very wicked. But Rupa and Sanatan and Anupam, they stayed for some time. That they had their reason, but it's different. But it's something to do with the pastime of the personality of Godhead, and Bhishma Dev for sure. Bhishma Dev for sure. He was acting in this capacity of chivalry in relation to Krishna. And Prabhupada said Krishna also about Bhishma, Krishna wanted to show, doesn't matter who you are, if you don't protect women, you're finished. He could have, he should have, he didn't. Finished. Okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
You have something further.
I was thinking about Vibhishan's the pastime of Sri Ranganath. That means Vibhishan goes to Ayodhya, and when he felt separation, that Lord Ramachandra gave him the deity of Sri Ranganath. Is that the right? I just forgot that pastime a little bit.
It's not a deity of Ranganath. I can't remember. It's a deity. Ranganath is facing towards Lanka, but he gave him a deity. I'll research. I don't remember.
I remember that it was Dashrath. It was worshipped by Dashrath's
Yeah, from the Ikshvaku. Yeah, the whole line. But I don't think it's not Ranganath. Some other deity. I'll check. You looking? No. Okay. She has some questions online.
So this question is from Mahati Mataji, Kirti Prabhu's wife. How did Vibhishan become Lord Rama's devotee? Who told him about Lord Rama? How did he manage to practice bhakti without any devotee association in Lanka?
That was her question. How can we practice bhakti in the midst of the Kali Yuga atmosphere that we're surrounded by? Of course, he had a good wife, and she was also a great devotee. His life in general, Vibhishan's life in general, was, as we heard, geared towards righteousness, and that meant, and he had studied the Vedas, and he was knowledgeable in the Vedas, so most likely there was some kind of a practice, sadhana or whatever practice, that he did to stay connected with the knowledge and conclusion of the Vedas. His father certainly was virtuous, and he learned from his father. And then in his adult life, he moved on. But he carried that with him, undoubtedly, what he had understood from Vishravas. So there wasn't much association other than his wife and his 4 ministers that we're aware of. But they had that quality and capacity, as did he. So it was a small circle, a little Bhakti Vriksha group in Lanka.
This question is from Sanchari Mataji. Vibhishan's story, especially in his response as a devotee to injustice in particular, seems incredibly relevant to our current state with all the socio-political unrest. As devotees, we are trained to inculcate detached compassion in our reactions to the situation of this world. However, with everything happening, it's really difficult to practice it with steadiness. Is there any particular prayer that could help us to really imbibe this in our practice?
I'm sure. I'll give your question some thought, and I'll send you a prayer or two. I mean, I right away my thought is going to Shikshashtaka, because when you have shelter of Krishna, particularly in the form of his holy name, you have shelter anywhere at any time. And then it's a matter of a mood of shelter taking, and you'll feel protected in any circumstance, and empowered in any circumstance. I know somebody that's in the medical profession, and they're in the midst of it's several actually devotees in the medical profession, and in those who have hospital jobs, it's really difficult. As there's even one that I know that's in China, that's it's extremely difficult. They're not involved in COVID handling part of what's in the hospital, but the whole hospital is so much more. Service is challenging, but that the strength that's keeping them going, and other devotees in other circumstances, it's the holy name. The holy name and the instructions that we receive from Prabhupada and our disciplic succession. That's the lifeline. So you're asking specific prayers, I think, Shikshastika.
Vinod Prabhu's question. In some versions of the epic Ramayana, the fire god Agni creates Maya Sita, who takes Sita's place and is abducted by Ravana and suffers his captivity. Is this true?
There are different versions of Ramayana, and some of them say precisely that. One of the sessions we will be covering is Vṛndāvana. Stay tuned.
And this question is from Raghunandan Prabhu. Is the Sampati who was with Vibhishan and the Sampati Jataya's brother, are they the same?
No.
We don't know the name of the devotee who is asking. Can you please tell us a personal experience story you had with Srila Prabhupada?
That's a nice question, but it's off topic. I'll say, receiving initiation, that was a nice experience. Very memorable. There's a little detail with that. The person, when Prabhupada was traveling, he had a GBC member as his secretary, and then there was a personal servant. And the personal servant did a different set of things. So in this particular case, during my initiation, I knew the person from the temple that I joined. The temple that I joined was in Boston. And this devotee's name was Arvind, and initiated name. And I remember very clearly what he was. He used to have a cloth around his neck and a little pouch that had a little Jagannath deity in the little pouch. It was a kind of like a fashion, I guess, or something, because I don't know how much he understood about deity worship, or anybody really understood about deity worship, but he wanted to be with Jagannath all the time, so that's what he did. And he was, a very good-natured devotee, very, serious, but kind and warm and affable kind of personality. However, something happened. When he got in Prabhupada's association, apparently he made offenses, because one of the things I saw when it happened right at my initiation, he was reading out the names. There were 10 people a day, and then Prabhupada, right in front of us, he was chanting on all the sets of beads while we were chanting in the temple room, and then he would give the names and the beads. So Arvind was reading the names. So when it came to my name, he read my name, and he said Romapada, and Prabhupada looked at him and said Ramapada, and Arvind looked at Prabhupada and said in a tone, Romapada. He looked at the sheet and corrected Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada, the inflection of his voice, you don't get that from the transcription, but I very clearly remember. And then Prabhupada said, Ramapada? Question. And then he spelled it out, Romapada. Then Prabhupada went along with it and gave the meaning and so forth. That devotee later fell down. He left Krishna consciousness because you can't make offenses to the spiritual master. I mean, Prabhupada wasn't admonishing him in this public forum, but who knows, Krishna certainly wasn't pleased by whatever it was that caused that offensiveness. It kind of escalates and it can destroy somebody. I was surprised to see that kind of exchange, but I wasn't surprised to see what was the result of that kind of an exchange. He left devotional service from the position of being this affable, warm, friendly devotee to he's gone. It was a good lesson. Don't defend the spiritual master. Okay. Anything else? That's not a good note to end on. Nothing else. Anything else in the room? You sure? What about your daughters? Did she disappear? Anything? Anything either of you would like to discuss? Ask? I found that teenagers have some of the best questions. They're a little shy to ask them, but they have some of the best questions. Nothing today, right? There's one more over here, and then we're done. Slightly off topic. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a history buff a little bit, and I was reading about Cambodia, Vietnam border. There is a holy place called Ayodhya, which is a reflection of what Ayodhya was. It was some 4,000 years ago. They built that place. Everything else is exactly like how it is found in Ayodhya, but only the central place where the palace is supposed to be, it's the palace of Rama IV or whoever the founder of that dynasty was. So I don't know, when you visit China or some of these countries, do they ever talk about this country?
No. No. I don't know. There was something going on in Cambodia, obviously, but what and how to understand it. It's too shrouded in speculation and different things. So I don't really go there. I mean, maybe in discussion or researching. There's lots of other things to research that I feel really enlivened by. Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.